Flawedcast. Flawedcast. Get in the arena.
Well, you know where we're going today.
That's right.
Gun show, baby!
That is right. And I can't think of a better way to start this podcast off by saying thank you for tuning in to another exciting, fun-filled episode of Flawedcast. As always, I'm here with my thought-provoking and often jarring in a very productive way in my life.
See, you know, Will, you always got these big fancy words. And I don't have any big fancy words. But let me tell you what I have. I have this really cool little box, and I just want to let you know that I really appreciate you, and I think you're sexy. You know what I'm saying? That's what you got going for you, Bill.
I try. I work out.
Yes, you do. You work out the mind and the body. That's what I'm talking about.
I try. Mind, body, and spirit.
How you feeling this morning, Bill? I'm pretty excited today.
I feel good. I feel like, our pregame was on point, and before I think we should get into that, I just want to tell everybody thank you. We have been growing exponentially on a lot of our sites. Been picking up on Instagram, but Parler, that place is awesome, so we thank you. Twitter ain't showing us any love, but I feel like we're getting blocked because we're too controversial, but that's okay. Please follow us. Parler, Gab, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Flawed Inc. or Flawed Inc. CLE. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, we're on YouTube, Apple. So make sure you subscribe and follow. We appreciate it. And we got a lot coming up. FlawedInc.com. We are up. We are live. We have a new email, info@flawedinc.com. Of course, you can use the old one, flawedinccle@gmail.com. But we are up and running. If you want to get in touch with us, contact us. There's a form. Put your name, email, leave a message, set us up. It comes right to me.
Yeah, get in the arena with us.
Get in the arena with us. And this episode in our pregame, Jason has this uncanny ability to find these little things, these little nuggets that just make me bawl like a little baby. And
well, me too. There's nothing like a good cry, man. Especially when kind of a joyful one, I guess.
Well, I would say if anytime your heart is provoked in a manner that's never been provoked before, and it leads you in that direction of love, that is never a bad thing.
Right.
And we watched a couple of videos this morning before we did this that did that. And this episode, we're going to talk about...
Well, I want to actually expound on that a little bit. So,
okay,
folks, this is how this goes. Bill sends me an email a few days ago and saying, hey, man, this is the topic I think we should do on our podcast this week. And he sends the topic over and he says, read my notes, tell me what you think, bring your notes with you, and then we pregame. That's pretty much how it works, right? So Bill's the mastermind, as you probably all knew.
No.
But either way, he sends me these notes, and it just clicked. Like, literally the day before he sent me the notes, I get caught up in this ad. I'm watching let's just say I'm watching my media, the things that aren't in mainstream, which is going to be through YouTube and Parler and all these places, checking out different aspects of what's going on in the world. And, they do these 5-second ads on YouTube, and this ad, that 5 seconds, something about it grabbed me.
Which is miraculous, because I just wait.
I don't think I've ever watched an actual ad.
I never have.
If it had the skip ad button.
I just count down, like, okay,
I'm watching this thing, and then I'm like, holy cow, this is an ad. It was 20 minutes long, and it was amazing. Anyway, when Bill sent over what he thought we should do this week, that's what came to my mind. I knew right away that he had something, and that this was going to be a great episode. So anyway, I just wanted to explain how that all works, so folks can understand what goes into kind of how we come up with what we're going to talk about. It's not like
I put a bunch of stuff in a hat and then pick it out.
Or even that it's really super planned out either. It's
right. Well, and that's why
really from our hearts more than anything.
Yeah, and that's why I pray and I really think about, okay, what is it that we need to discuss? So this happens to us a lot. Like, I'll say, okay, here are the notes. What do you think? A couple episodes ago, he's like, nah, not really feeling it. And then we had a discussion. We gameplay. We're like, oh, this is great. And that was a really, really good episode.
Yep.
But this week was really good because, and to me, it's like, the hand of providence, the Almighty is like, these two dumb knockers on the east side of Cleveland, I'm going to, hopefully, he's saying, I'm going to use these guys to give a message. This morning, this is one of those moments when we're pre-gaming. For me, it was just a confirmation. of that. And, when I say that, I don't mean that in jest. I literally say that. I really believe like God orchestrates and moves. And if you listen, and we're going to get into that, but if you listen, he'll guide you and he'll lead you. And I really believe, independently, he was speaking to both of us about the same subject. So hopefully he can use us and what we're bringing and what we're going to present to you today to help motivate and help provoke you to start to contend to understand the heart of a warrior, which is what this episode is all about.
Heart of a warrior.
Heart of a warrior. And,
I like it.
Well, it's funny because it reminds me of that scene in that movie Paul Blart where he gets stuck and he's like, heart of a warrior. And then
Mall cop.
Yeah, and then he falls through the floor.
I do remember that.
So we got a couple notes we're going to discuss and a couple quotes, but we do want to thank you guys. We've been getting a lot of. I got a message yesterday on Parler, and it was very humbling. And I sent it right away to Jason, and we put a lot of time into this, and we put a lot of.
Especially you.
We put a lot of money. We're not saying that in a boastful manner. What we're saying is that we want to make change. When we say get in the arena, this is how we know right now to get in the arena. This is how we are trying to become warriors. So when we get feedback, even the bad stuff, I love the bad stuff because that means that somehow we're provoking somebody and they're forced to look at a idea that maybe that they hadn't before, and it's kind of jarring. So either way, it's good. And that to us that's the best to offer the world. A couple things to get into. I want Jason to read this first quote. This to me is going to set off this whole chain event, especially in regards to the two videos that we watched this morning, and then also in regards to the other scripture and other things that we're going to talk about. So go ahead, if you don't mind, Jason.
Sure. To be a warrior is not a simple matter of wishing to be one. It is rather an endless struggle that will go on to the very last moments of our lives. Nobody is born a warrior, in exactly the same way that nobody is born an average man. We make ourselves into one or the other. Carlos Castaneda.
Yeah, he was an American author. He was also a shaman. He was a spiritualist. But his personal spiritual philosophy isn't necessarily what we're going to focus on. What we're going to focus on is what he just said there. He talks about no one, per se, is born a warrior. Like nobody is born an average man. So you can choose. Now, I will say this. There are some people that have natural proclivities, and there are some people that have natural giftings more than others. And that's okay. We all have our lanes that we stay in and we thrive in, and that's awesome. But the idea that nobody is born a warrior like nobody is born an average man is so jarring to me because we choose. We choose to get in the arena, like we discuss every single episode. Every single episode is about getting in the arena. It's the speech from Teddy Roosevelt that we initially kicked off this whole podcast with. So you do have the choice. Now, it's important that when we're discussing the idea of a warrior or what a warrior is or why a person should war, period, that is a subject that we're going to try to talk about and shell out. So the next...
Well, before we move on to the next, I want to talk about that specific quote a little bit.
Yeah.
So when I read that quote, that's what really, because I want to tie in my piece to this, because it's what I thought of, right? So in that quote, again, what you're here is nobody's born a warrior in exactly the same way that nobody's born an average man. We make ourselves into one or the other. That's what made me think about the prior day when I saw this ad that I ended up watching. And the ad was for Charity Water, right? And the founder of Charity Water, Scott Harrison. And it's like a 20-minute long video, it turned out to be. And the reason that made me think of that quote, the two tied together for me, is when this gentleman, Scott Harrison, was growing up, he was as he self-proclaimed, good Christian upbringing, played the piano at church, wanted to be a doctor. His mom was ill for some things, and wanted to be a doctor to be able to help people like his mom, and just a good kid. And then he says he turned 18, and music was his outlet, and took his band in New York, and they played until they broke up. And when they broke up, he became a club promoter, and he partied his ass off. And he'll tell you right in the story that's what he did. He drank every night. He did drugs. He promoted partying. And after a period of time doing that, he said, I'm morally bankrupt. I'm spiritually bankrupt. I need to find my path again. And he couldn't get into any
quote-unquote established Christian organizations because he wanted to volunteer and he wanted to give back. But because
no one would accept him.
No one would accept him because of his past. And I didn't even tell you this when we were watching it, but so many things in that portion deeply resonated with me in many ways.
So he finally finds one that it's a mercy ship type thing where it's a doctors on ships and they go over to Africa and different countries and they help people. And he had to pay to be on it. That was how it worked. He had to pay $500 a month to volunteer to do this. Anyway, he spent a year doing that and he came back, and what he found over in Africa is he couldn't believe the situation. And I'm giving you a Cliff Notes version, but couldn't believe the situation with the drinking water there. And he decided to start Charity Water. So,
well, it was more of a journey of he saw the immediate effects that the lack of clean, pure water and just basic sanitation had on the community that he was volunteering in. But it's a far.
So I say go check out Charity Water. It's awesome. Yeah. But the reason it tied to me, and I'm giving you again the Cliff Notes version of Scott here, is nobody is born a warrior in exactly the same way nobody's born an average man. We make ourselves into one or another. Mm-hmm. He came to a crossroads in his life and said, I'm either going to be just a person who parties and known in my circle and that's it, and I'm not really impacting or helping anyone, or I can be a warrior. I can make a difference. I can get in the arena. And he came back after that year. He went away for a year to find himself, and he did. And he came back a warrior. He made himself into one. That's what resonated with me. As soon as I read that first quote there that we just read, I just couldn't believe it. Like, when we think warrior, I think all of us jump right to war, if you will, soldiers. And I'm not taking anything away from that.
Well, that is part of it.
Definitely part of it. But it's more than that. It's wider than that. And, I look at Scott Harrison, I believe that he is a warrior. And he's not self-proclaimed warrior. This is me saying this. And he doesn't do it for himself. He does it for others, which is great. But he got in the arena and he said, I'm going to not stop. I'm not going to quit. I'm going to continue moving forward and making a difference and war on.
Right. Well, the other video we were watching is about a movie about a gentleman named Sam Childers who, is a former drug dealer. I believe he has a couple motorcycle gangs and just kind of a real despicable kind of fellow. But he was at a crossroads in his life. He met Christ. He became a Christian, and it's a remarkable movie, but it basically it was similar in many ways. Like, he wanted to volunteer, he wanted to be at a church, and help people, but because of his background, because of his outward appearance, if you will, they didn't accept him. So basically, he's like, I see a need in Africa. Once again, and a lot of the charity work with Charity Water is done in Africa. It's done in India. It's done in the Sudan and Middle East and places like very hostile, very dangerous places, I might add. But like with Sam Childers, a machine gun preacher, he literally went into the middle of a war zone and built orphanages, built safe places for these children to live. And so we had a really long dialogue about, the idea of a warrior, because we talk about fighting tyranny. Like, that's one of our big things, right?
Absolutely.
Spiritually, mentally, politically, physically. It's having the heart, the proper motive to be able to fight tyranny. Because if you are aggressive and you are just lashing out, there's a very fine line of being a bully or being a dick versus being a warrior. And for me, this scripture is the heart of what a warrior focuses on. This is why somebody laces up their boots and straps on their helmet, if you will, and steps into that arena, steps into that battlefield.
Okay, so this is Psalm 82, 3-4 from the Amplified Bible. Vindicate the weak and fatherless. Do justice and maintain the rights of the afflicted and destitute. Rescue the weak and needy. Rescue them from the hand of the wicked.
Read the other version too, because I like that one.
Okay, so this is also Psalm 82, 3-4 from the Message. Enough. You've corrupted justice long enough. You've let the wicked get away with murder. You're here to defend the defenseless, to make sure that underdogs get a fair break. Your job is to stand up for the powerless and prosecute all those who exploit them.
All right, so right there for me, and that's why I like different translations of the Bible, because you get to shell out, you get to really understand the sentiment. So it's not so much, I got to remember every jot and jittle of what it says. I think God is far more concerned with you getting the point than you specifically memorizing everything. So right there where it says you are to defend the defenseless, you're to make sure the underdogs get a fair break. Your job is to stand up for the powerless and to persecute all those who exploit them. To me, that is the essence. That is the heart of what we are discussing. Now, we over talk about politics, I think, sometimes here, which is very important right now because
right now it's
super
very important.
But our heart, is this. Being able to defend the defenseless, being able to make sure the underdogs get a fair break, to stand up for the powerless. It's a really hard thing to speak truth to power. Most people that do that, I look at my heroes, Lincoln, Martin Luther King Jr., Jesus. They've all given their life for these things. And in both that movie Machine Gun Preacher and then in the video for the charity water that we watched, there were very important people in both of these scenarios that literally gave their life. I'm not dramatizing anything. I'm not overspeaking. They literally gave their life so that the notion of defending the defenseless, standing up for the powerless, that could be advanced and then that could be forward. That is what a warrior does. It's not about us. It's about others and serving others. I believe we talked about this in another episode a while ago, but 2-3 years ago, I remember just sitting in your basement. You're like, Bill, what's your why? And This is right when my divorce and everything was going on. And everything was in a turmoil. But I've always known my purpose, my why is to make an eternal impact in people's lives. In order for me to do that, John 3:30, John the Baptist is talking. He says, I must decrease so that he can increase. Right? So Bill, I have to become less so that whatever message, whatever instrument of fighting tyranny that God wants to use can go forward and be as effective as possible. And I'm good with that. I really am.
Wow. Sorry, my mind just went like a million places.
Okay.
I remember that afternoon very clearly, and there's no doubt you were lost, man. Truly were. Emotionally, mentally,
spiritually.
Spiritually, you were completely lost. And from that day, you told me what your why was. You thought about it, and you said, "This is what my why is. This is what I know in my heart. This is what I know." And you've never turned back from that. That's been the focus and the conversation that we've had since that moment. That's been your focus, and I believe that's really helped you get back on track and find where you're at.
Totes my goats.
And I got to tell you, man, I'm really excited that we're doing this episode and talking about this. I just truly believe that, when you talk about the heart of a warrior and you combine that with what our motto is, get in the arena. When you put those two things together, man, that's what it's about, right? How can we impact and help others? There's a lot of ways to go about doing that. And the biggest way is this. The power is in numbers. The ability for us to be able to do something to help others, no matter what it may be. There's a million different ways we can help folks, and there's million different kinds of folks that we could help. Everything from charity water, right? People who don't have water, to medicine, and people that need medicine, to homeless, to starving. Education. There's a bunch, and there's no one, I don't think, that's necessarily more important than other. I think it's all very, very important, and they all tie together. When you make an impact in people's lives, that gives them a chance to make impact in people's lives, and it continues that way. And it's really the power in numbers.
Yeah. Well, when the high tide comes in, all ships rise.
That's right.
For example, and it's such a basic thing, and it's such a thing we take for granted. And it's really interesting that I didn't know Jason was going to bring this video, and this morning he came over, and I have this water filter system that I bought that.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah, because people, they put fluoride, they put all this crap in the water we really shouldn't ingest. So, I purify as much of the water as I use as I can. And I was telling him, you wouldn't believe all the crap that's in tap water. And I told him there's this black brown sludge that I had to clean out. It was just disgusting from tap water. But then we watched this film, this 20-minute. I don't even want to call it a commercial. This is 20-minute short information-packed video
asking you to get in the arena.
Yeah.
Which I did.
And
everyone should.
Everyone should, exactly. And I know this because I've been aware of these kind of organizations, not this organization, but these kind of organizations. And people bathe and shit and drink from the same source of water in a lot of these places.
Not just people.
Yes, thank you. Not just people.
The pigs, the cows.
The crocodiles.
Yes, there's stories of that.
It's
disgusting.
It is. And it's such a thing that we take for granted. Even the fact, we can go to the water faucet in my house and get relatively clean water in comparison to that is...
Well, and not just to drink, right? Not just to drink.
Sure.
But I showered this morning. Clean water. I brushed my teeth using clean water.
You went to the You went to the bathroom.
Went to the bathroom and flushed that with
use sanitation methods to clean water. Yeah.
clean my home with water, like it's not just drinking. There's a lot of very important things that we take for granted.
Cook with water
that we take for granted. And I get it, right? That's one of the things that we've done.
First world problem.
That's right. To see this and to realize there is the number that they gave in this infomercial was like 638 million people who don't have clean sanitary water.
Well, don't have consume. Right? I mean, and they were saying like women have to walk. The women and children primarily have to carry these 40-gallon buckets. They walk
40 pounds.
40 pounds. Yes, and they walk hours to get this shit
like
water.
The whole day. That's what they do. Yeah. They can't go to school. All they do is they walk hours to get water that will probably kill them, and they die from it. And then this other stat they gave is that more people die from dirty water than all the wars combined every year. I had no idea.
Yeah. One of the real interesting things, this might sound like a proselytizing, perhaps I am, that's fine. But, one of the things is when you read the Old Testament, you understand some of the Levitical law. It wasn't like God was being a jerk and saying, well, you can't do this and this and this. A lot of it is this basic kind of common sense sanitation that, these people didn't really know. So this gentleman from Charity Water, he recommitted his life with his relationship with God and moved forward in that. But a lot of what I got out of that is these basic sanitary principles. When people come in with the understanding of the gospel and they come in being motivated in being led by the hand of providence, that's when things can change. Those basic things that we in this society take for granted, these civilizations that have never been introduced to that, they've never been aware of these basic ideas, these basic principles of sanitation and things. It's a literal life-changing experience. Like I said, maybe these people never seen a clean glass of water. I'm not overstating that.
No, not at all. They've definitely never seen a bathroom.
Yeah, I mean, a flushing toilet.
It's unbelievable.
Right, and they were showing pictures of like once they primed the well for the first time, and they were just the exuberance of the clean water.
Having a Lamborghini pulled in your driveway, and the expression you'd have on your face, that's the kind of expression these folks had over clean water. Think about that for a second.
Yeah. So, but like I was saying with this gentleman, and even the Sam Childers, like they were motivated out of their love, not just for God, but for the love that he's putting them for others. And it just, that's like the gifting. That's where their skill set lied. Like this guy, his skill set was throwing awesome parties. And then what he did was he took his skill set, and that's what launched Charity Water.
He figured out what am I good at and how can I impact based on what I'm good at. And that brings me to one of my favorite verses in the Bible. Romans 12, 6-8. We have different gifts according to the grace given to each of us. If your gift is prophesying, then prophesy in accordance with your faith. If it is serving, then serve. If it is teaching, then teach. If it is to encourage and give encouragement, if it is giving, then give generously. If it is to lead, do it diligently. If it is to show mercy, do it cheerfully. And I love that because we all have different gifts. Some people are extremely wealthy. Their gift is literally
giving
because they make money. They have the knack, ability, whatever, the gift of being extremely wealthy or to find ways to bring money in, and they give. Everyone has a different gift. Some folks' gifts are teaching, right? What they do is they're able to teach folks to give information and pass that along. Everyone has a different gift that they're able to give and impact others. And again, this is where what you said earlier, Bill, when the tide comes in.
High tide comes in, all ships rise.
All ships rise. And that's what it's about. Like, you don't have to try to go outside what your gift is. Warrior in what your strength, what your gift is. We go back to the machine gun preacher, and you look at what
he did. Construction. That was his. Other than selling drugs and other than being in a motorcycle gang, what he did to legitimately supplement his income was he was a construction worker. He was a foreman. So literally, what he did was he took those skills by himself and went to the Sudan, which is one of the most dangerous places in the world.
It was a dual skill thing because construction was his trade.
Right.
But I believe his real skill was being fearless and...
Well, he was a warrior even before he went. So the premise of Sam Childers is that when he went, it wasn't just missionary work he did, but literally he had to fight the Sudanese rebels, or I'm sorry, Sudanese army. If you know anything about this time frame when he went, it was the early to mid-90s. There's a great movie called Hotel Rwanda that kind of documents that. But this is literally the same kind of environment, same kind of place that he went in during that time. And literally, he took up arms. The people say, well, the Bible says thou shalt not kill. No, the Bible says thou shalt not murder. There's a big difference. So this gentleman took up arms to fight, to save these children, to
Fight evil.
To fight evil, to fight tyranny. So not only was he trained, if you will, as a foreman, as somebody who has skills to create and build, but he was also trained and skilled in the art of fighting, in the art of being a warrior. Right. In more the conventional sense, I would say, that people would consider.
Right, so, fighting, fearless, just do what you've got to do in order to have the success that you need to have.
Exactly, and there's one scene in that film where I forgot what organization it was, like maybe Red Cross or something like that, but the woman, she sees him picking up a gun, she's like, what are you going to do? And he goes, you fight how you know how to fight, and I'm going to fight how I know how to fight. And he takes his gun and like racks around. And
and what he just said right there goes back to that Romans 6-8.
Yeah, exactly.
You have a gift. You have that. I have a gift that I'm supposed to use, right? So what we're saying is, don't pigeonhole yourself thinking that you have to do this or you have to do that. There's a lot of ways to warrior. There's a lot of ways to give. But what you have to do, what is critical, and this is where I love how we tie into the heart of a warrior, is you have to get in the arena.
Exactly. Well, and even like what Carlos Castaneda said, no man is born a warrior in the same way that no one is born an average man.
That's right.
And so when we consider, quote unquote, great warriors throughout history, and I was thinking like, maybe like Shaka Zulu or George Washington or Geronimo, like, some of these people that you may historically look of like as real people, but that also were incredible warriors. They were average men. The only thing that separated them, literally, this is the only thing that separated them from people who remained average, was they got in the arena. And
you can't make change. You can't make a difference from the sideline.
In the arena quote, it's not the critic, right?
Oh, man.
It's not the critic who counts.
I feel like we should read that again.
Go ahead and look it up.
It's been since the first episode.
Well, yeah.
That we've read the quote, get in the arena. Tell about it a little bit.
So Theodore Roosevelt, who is one of my favorite presidents, like embodied much like Jason, embodied the idea of rugged individualism, is giving this speech in Paris. I believe it was
1910.
1910, okay, excuse me. And he gives this speech, and it's a longer speech, but this is a famous portion. When we first talked about doing this podcast, this is what I brought to him. I said, this is what I believe everything moving forward should be based from. The notion of getting in the arena. So go ahead.
And it just goes again with this episode of The Heart of the Warrior. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds? Who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. I mean, that is some powerful stuff.
Every time I hear that, I get goosebumps.
We shorten that so much by just saying on all our episodes, get in the arena.
Yeah.
But that's what it is. Don't sit on the sideline and make comments and point fingers. Get in the arena.
We have this opportunity to choose. And it could be whatever cause. Like this gentleman with Charity Water, his cause, he saw people are dying because they don't have clean water. And it started from there. With Sam Childers, the machine gun preacher, the guy was like, wow, these people, these children, not only are they being kidnapped and drafted into the Sudanese army, but they're also being just slaughtered in mass. And so, say your cause, what you hold fast to is, whatever that is, do it. Just do it.
Get in the arena.
Yeah.
Be a doer. Find a way to get involved. And again, there's lots of ways to do it. It doesn't mean you've got to go give money. If
that could be it.
If that's not, it could be it. Maybe that's not it. Maybe it's doing a podcast like Bill and I are doing.
Right.
Maybe it's just having conversations or doing a blog or whatever. I mean, there's so many different ways to get in the arena to impact.
And that's what the one gentleman said in that video. He goes, right now, about any other time in history, we have the ability to be so connected. We have the ability to a good idea that stands on its own in the marketplace of free thought can inspire. I know recently I said in one of our previous episodes that, the truth is contagious. You can't contain the truth once it's unleashed. And that, that's what we're talking about. But I want to shift just a little bit.
Okay.
To the idea of, Carlos Castaneda says, you choose. How does he word that again?
We make ourselves into one or the other.
Yeah.
So nobody is born a warrior in exactly the same way that no one is born an average man.
Exactly. So let me just say this, and I'm speaking from my own self. We had another conversation earlier this morning about myself and different things that I struggle with, different self-thought, self-perception, and I myself battle these things. So I wanted to talk about the idea of you discounting yourself. Well, I'm not good enough. I'm not valiant enough.
I don't have the ability.
I don't have the ability. Who cares? Like, that's something I struggle with all the time. Like, who gives an F what I have to say?
Am I really going to make an impact?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, who's that talking, right? You ever see on the old cartoons or movies or whatever where on one shoulder there's your angel, and the other shoulder there's you as a devil? That's real world. That's what happens, right? All those things you hear in your head. We all talk to ourselves in our head. But what that is, that's good versus evil. And you can listen to one or the other. But the one that wins is the one you feed. Just remember
Absolutely.
that.
So we're going to share some quotes. And, I was reading these, and some of these really impacted me. And I'm gonna change up the order here a little bit. So James A. Garfield, who oddly enough is one of our
hometown homie.
Yeah, James A. Garfield, who lived near us.
He grew up about 15 minutes from where we're sitting.
Yeah, and his house is a national historic place, and it's interesting because it's nearly across the street from a mall.
Right.
But so let me share one of his quotes I just love. It says, "Ideas are the great warriors of the world, and a war that has no idea behind it is simply brutality." And that's what I was just talking about earlier in regards to if you want to be a warrior, but you don't have an idea behind it. If there isn't a compulsion, or I would say if there isn't a noble, righteous cause, then it's just brutality. That's the thing to keep in mind. And Sun Tzu, so Sun Tzu was a famous warrior, and he wrote this book. It's called The Art of War, which is a high philosophical book about the principle of war. It's good. I've read it. It takes a little bit to digest, but it's powerful. One of my favorite quotes from that, he says, "Victorious warriors win first and then go to war, while defeated warriors go to war first and then seek to win." Confession time for me. I am pushing through right now with the podcast, and who cares what I think? That's my struggle. That's my war I fight. Who cares what I have to think? But what I'm learning, and this is something like I knew even when we started, because I understood, and I read that book, and I understood these principles. I got to win in my mind first, in my heart first. I have to win before I actually physically contend, before I'm in the point where I'm in the arena. Before I've gotten in the arena, I have to win in my mind and in my heart. Before that is the victory of the warrior. And whether that person, like Theodore Roosevelt said, whether they know the heights of victory or they know the crushing lows of defeat, they have already won because they've valiantly attempted.
Right, they got in the ring. Well, Bill, that ties directly to that Confucius quote. Go ahead and read that one.
"He who conquers himself is the mightiest warrior." So what I'm saying,
and that's exactly what Sun Tzu's saying beforehand: conquer yourself, then go to war. And again, I just want to tie it back real quick to the charity water and Bill Scott. He was in a bad place, and he needed to find himself. That was his first mission. That's where he went on to this mercy ship for a year and volunteered, paid to volunteer. Volunteer. Right. And found himself. He won the war with himself. He stopped all the things and won the war with himself. Then came back home and went to war.
So there's this woman, Cassandra Clare. I stumbled upon this quote. She wrote, I guess, a series of books, but the one's called Clockwork Angel. And to me, when I think of Clockwork Angel, I think of the last Rush studio album. But anyway, what she says here is just, it's so profound. And once again, it ties back to what Confucius said. It ties back to what Sun Tzu said. Whatever you are physically, male or female, strong or weak, ill or healthy, all those things matter less than what your heart contains. If you have the soul of a warrior, you are a warrior. All those other things, they are the glass that contains the lamp, but you are the light inside.
That's really a great quote. It's the first time I ever heard that quote was when I read it today.
Yes. Think about that. Once again, I'm just confession time for me. I discount myself. If you've been listening to our podcast, if you know me at all, there's things about me that I discount. And my attempt here and what I want to hopefully be, maybe it's to inspire. I don't want to say anything that lofty, but I would love to say, hey, if Bill can do that, then I can do it. But the idea or the notion that it doesn't necessarily matter. It doesn't matter if you're a woman. It doesn't matter if you're a man. It doesn't matter if you're in perfect health. It doesn't matter if you have a terminal illness. It matters is your heart. If you have the heart of a warrior, and if you have a cause that you believe is to be noble and righteous, the outside facade doesn't matter. God doesn't look at the outside. He examines our heart. And that is the defining line between a warrior and maybe a bully, or a warrior and somebody who says, well, that sucks, and turns the channel. Because it would have been very easy for you to hit skip ad.
Well, it would have, and it's crazy because as we're talking about everything that Bill wrote in all these notes that Bill put together for this podcast, I'm reading through them, ties back to this charity water thing, right? And what I mean by this is what we just read there. What was her name?
Cassandra Clare.
So part of what you'll watch in this video, and watch it. I think we'll try to put the link in.
I'll put the link in.
For sure. These kids are in the video. They're kids, like between the ages of 8 and 12 probably. So I'm talking not teenagers, I'm talking kids, right?
Yeah, younger too.
And younger, who are giving up Christmas, giving up their birthdays, doing lemonade stands.
Going door
to door asking for donations. These kids are raising money. Are you ready for how much? Tens of thousands of dollars. And again, who are they? It's about their heart. It has nothing to do with what gender they are, what age they are, good, better, and different. And the story that really gets me is there was a young girl who, she was very young. She was 9, and she wanted to give $300 instead of having for her birthday, instead of getting presents. That's what she wanted for her birthday.
Do we want to spill the beans here? Do we want?
I'm not going to spill. All I'm going to say is she didn't hit her goal, and her life ended up impacting so many people that it's raised north of 7 figures. 7 figures is over $1 million, okay? So she is directly responsible for raising well over $1 million. How many people did she impact by having the heart that she had, by getting in the arena in just a different way? And again, watch the video so you can understand what this young girl did.
What did they say? 683,000 people from her alone were able to receive water, the gift of life, essentially.
Well, and she impacted what happened. She impacted over 36,000 people, I think they said, to directly give. That's how they got to that point. Anyway, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what you have, the ups, the downs, the whatever. It matters the size of your heart. It matters your heart, what's inside of you. Don't worry about the glass on the outside, as Ms. Clare said. It's about the light on the inside. Get in the arena.
And thinking about that, I'm going to read another verse. And it's more of an obscure one. But for me, this one carries a lot of weight. It's from John chapter 12, verse 24. It says, "Truly, truly, I tell you, unless a kernel of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains only a single seed. But if it dies, it produces many seeds." The takeaway from that is, unless a seed dies and sprouts and takes on a new birth, if you will, to become whatever, like in this case, wheat stalk, it'll produce other wheat stalks. It keeps producing, but there is that sacrificial act that has to happen. And that is the heart of a warrior, that saying, I am not as concerned with my well-being, my safety, my reputation, what I think of myself, as that if I can somehow, and that's sometimes the battle with the warrior, not the actual fight they're engaged in. The battle with the warrior is the battle in their heart. If I can battle and wage those things that I discount in myself, I can be used to help others. And that's like the best legacy. I mean, the best legacy isn't one that we can leave in wealth. The best legacy isn't what we can ascribe as an epitaph on our tombstone. The best legacy we could leave is what we write on the hearts of our fellow men when we leave this place. And I think that's it for me.
Yeah, this is a great episode. Look inside. Know that you have the ability to impact others. with whatever your gift is. It starts with yourself from the inside out. You've heard me say that a bunch of times. You got to win the fight within, and then you can help others. But get in the arena, be a warrior, make an impact in what you believe in. We have the ability to give others an opportunity, a better life, whatever it may be, some comfort. And I think we have a responsibility to give what we can give. And again, I'm not talking just monetarily. I mean, whatever that may be. Sometimes it's honestly just an ear.
So just I'm going to wrap this up with just saying this. We're here to defend the defenseless, to make sure that the underdogs get a fair break. Our job is to stand up for the powerless and to prosecute those who exploit them. So that being said, I want to thank you for listening to another episode of Flawedcast. Please make sure you share us. This is how we've been able to grow. We thank you who have shared us. We thank you who have subscribed, who have left some positive feedback and the negative feedback. Thank you. Make sure you do subscribe. We are on Apple iTunes, podcasts. We're on Spotify, Google Play, anywhere you listen to podcasts. We're on YouTube, Flawed Inc. or Flawedcast CLE, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Parler, Gab, and get in the arena with us. If you have any suggestions, flawedinc.com. Under contacts, there's a form. Put your name, your email address, your contact information. Leave a message. I'm going to get it. It's going to come right to me, and we'll talk. We do want people to get in the arena, and if you want to get in the arena with us, we are welcoming you. If you're a writer, if you make videos, whatever your capacity is, if you want to come and join us on an episode, we got this space on our soundboard. We can add additional mics, and we can all begin, to get in the arena together. So we want to put that out there as well, and just do it.
Get in the arena.
Get in the arena. Out.
Well, that timed out perfect.
It
To your
did.
alarm.
It did.